Hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about 2023 financial goals that you can set to prep for a recession. So if you've been watching the news, there's been talks of a recession since 2020 and even before that. So in this video, I really don't want to propagate any more of that fear or that energy that comes with a lot of that content regarding this topic. What I want to do is have a chit chat, grab your tea, grab your coffee, and let's just talk about the state of how things are and what we can do to prepare. There's no point in just becoming afraid, because if we stay in that state of mind, it's not going to be beneficial to us. Rather, let's understand the reality of it all, but also, okay, this is the cards that are dealt. What do we do now? So that's the energy that I want this to give off. It's just a chat between a random girl on the internet and you. And I also want to mention that I am not a financial advisor. On this channel, I cover topics that are going to help me and anyone watching improve their life, even if by 1% every day. And I also just like documenting my life journey, whatever phase I'm currently in. And this year, I really want to become better at being on top of my finances and making more of an effort to improve my financial standing. So because I like documenting my journey, and that's currently the phase that I'm in, that is why I am creating this video, in hopes that it will also help someone that finds himself in a similar situation or just wants to learn more about these topics. And I do want to mention that, of course, financial goals are different for everyone. These goals that you set depend on so many things, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you have kids or no kids, whether you live in a geographic location in which the cost of living is maybe a little bit more expensive or much more expensive. Again, everyone's situation is different, therefore everyone's goals will be different. Whew, a lot of disclaimers with financial videos, but gotta get it done. Let's talk about the first tip. The first tip is to understand your current financial standing. So this means having a very clear picture and idea of what your income and your expenses are. I actually recently made a video that is more detailed and walks you through how to jot down your income, your expenses, and how to keep track of all of that. And I will go ahead and link that video down below in case you are interested. But essentially, as tedious as it may be, it is very important to get a very clear idea of how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. So this is going to involve us tracking our spending habits, really having the exact number of what our overhead is, and as well as tracking any variable expenses, debt, savings, and other places where our money may be going. With any goal you ever set, in order to know where you're going, you need to know where you're even at, right? So that's the whole premise behind the first tip, is do your due diligence, do this step one, do not skip it. I'm going to go ahead and link a spreadsheet that I previously talked about in the video that I referred to earlier. Moving on to tip number two. Tip number two is to reduce your expenses. So this is why the first tip is very important, because after laying out all of your expenses, all of your income, you're going to have a better idea of where your money is going. So seeing these numbers out in front of you will allow you to make decisions as to what categories you can decrease the spending in. This is a great opportunity to look at all the subscriptions that you have and start having a conversation with yourself and determine whether you really need every subscription that you are signed up for, or if you can do without some of them, at least for the time being. Maybe you'll notice that your eating out section is a category that you really spent a lot of money in. I know that has been the case for me before. I know for me, I thought for a while like, yeah, no, I'm not really spending on eating out. But once I saw that number in front of my face, I thought differently, because the case was different. The case was that I was spending a lot of money eating out. So then I was able to make a conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm cutting that out of my life or decreasing it, and I'm going to do more home cooked meals. And even some expenses that you think you can't really change, you might be able to start thinking about ways in which you can reduce those. So for example, maybe changing your car insurance or your phone insurance to providers or to maybe companies that charge you a little bit less. Start having a conversation with yourself or with your spouse or your family as to what you can decrease and what your plan is to reduce or eliminate some of your expenses. So now time for tip number 3. It is very similar to tip number 2. They come hand in hand. Tip number 3 is to eliminate your impulse purchases. So this happens to all of us. Like, depending on what it is you like or you enjoy, if you see it in front of your face, if you see a deal on it, you're more likely to buy it. So, for example, I love candles and just aesthetic things for the home. So if I go to Marshall's or TJ Maxx or on social media, I am going to be very inclined to want to purchase that. Everyone has that category or categories, right? That they love to invest or put their money into, maybe more than they should. So I want to give you a few pointers, a few tips of how you can eliminate these impulse purchases. Number 1 is to unsubscribe from those email lists. I know a lot of times I get emails from some of my favorite companies and I click on them out of curiosity. Sometimes I buy stuff, sometimes I don't. But if you can unsubscribe, at least for the time being, to reduce that temptation, that distraction, please do it. Also, this is a good time to unfollow those influencers or those pages that are making you more prone to spending. So if you're really into skincare or makeup, maybe unfollow Ulta or Sephora or any influencer that really pushes product. I think we're in a time that we become connected to people over the internet and we like them, so we are more likely to buy things that they recommend. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I am saying if you are someone that wants to reduce their spending in categories that aren't necessary, then if you want to be extreme and unfollow anything that can tempt you, then I would highly recommend that you do that. This is because not many of us have the willpower to say no all of the time. Maybe today you're able to say no to that coupon or that discount code that's being offered, but how are you going to be feeling tomorrow? How are you going to be feeling the day after that? So eliminating those distractions and temptations can really go a long way. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm discouraging you from spending in things that you enjoy. Not at all. I'm just saying that sometimes we need to set our own thresholds, our own limits on ourselves, not imposed by anyone else, but rather imposed by yourself based on what your financial goals are. So the next tip is one that I actually heard about recently, and this is the 90-10 rule. So what this means is that after you take care of your overhead, your bills, the expenses that are completely necessary, then you may have some money left over, which is good, right? This means that your income is higher than your expenses. So what you want to do is 90% of those remains of that money left over will be saved, and 10% of that you will use to treat yourself, because it's important that you treat yourself. So as I was saying earlier, spending on yourself is not a bad thing. In fact, if you do budget that into the equation, then you're more likely to stay on track with your financial goals because you're not fully depriving yourself. You're just limiting the amount of money that you can utilize to spend on yourself. So I mentioned that 90% of it you will save, and I will talk about how you can use that money to work for you in a later tip. So stay tuned for that. First, I want to talk about the next tip. Tip number 5 is to nurture your profession, your job, your career, etc. So it is common that during economic recessions, people are laid off of their jobs, right? Because a lot of businesses are cutting back on expenses. So yeah, this is a very real thing that does occur during recessions. So you want to do your best to protect that job, right? Because you don't want to be left without a job during trying times. So you want to make sure that you are nurturing it and protecting it. So different ways to do this are to just do your job right, take on extra shifts maybe, or just fulfill your job description to the best of your abilities. Just be a good sport, essentially. Protect that job, don't lose that income, okay? Tip number 6 is to make extra income. So there are different ways that you can make extra income. First, it can come through your current employment. So maybe you can take up extra shifts, do overtime, and therefore get paid more. If this isn't an option for you, or if you already are working very long hours, then another option could be to start a side hustle or sell some of your items that you currently have at home. So your furniture, just things that maybe you don't use, or anything that you can make money off of in your current house. So I mentioned side hustles. Some side hustles that you can pick up on are Uber, Instacart, Postmates. There's this app that I recently found about called Quick, I believe, which is for the hospitality industry, and it's for any freelancer to pick up a shift, such as like a bartender or a busboy or girl or dishwasher, or just different little gigs that you can pick up on and anything that has to do with the hospitality industry. And there's also another app that I recently learned about, which is called Wag, and this is essentially like a dog babysitter, a dog caretaker. So there's many other opportunities through the gig economy. These are just some examples that I was able to find on the internet, but also if you have a passion or a business that you want to start up and you've been wanting to for the longest time, then maybe this is a good opportunity for you to do so, like use some of the income that's coming in from your job to fund some of your business endeavors. So anything that you really can think of when it comes to making extra income, definitely make sure to explore that a little bit further. Okay. Time for tip number 7. Tip number 7 is to create magic with your profits, aka your savings. So I recently came across this really interesting idea of thinking about your savings differently. So instead of thinking about them as savings, you think of them as profits. Because if you were a business, for example, income minus your expenses would be your profits. But then when we think about our own life, we think of our income minus our expenses as our savings. And usually savings has like a very negative connotation, because usually when you think of savings, you think of your money losing value. But if you think about it as profits, it's more of a positive word, right? It has more of a positive connotation. So what are we going to do with those profits, with that leftover money? For example, if you have any credit card debt or any other form of personal debt, then go ahead and create a plan for paying that off. Because a lot of times if we don't get out of these high interest debts, then it's just this never ending hole that you feel like you're stuck in, right? Creating a plan to pay that off is going to be a great way in which you can put your profits to work. Once you've paid off any debt, another way that you can use your profits to create magic for you is to create an emergency fund. An emergency fund is this cash reserve that is enough to cover 3 to 6 months of your monthly spending, of your monthly overhead. So this number is going to look different for everyone. It could be 3,000, it could be 6,000, it could be 10,000, 20,000. It's all going to be based off your monthly expenses. So just multiply that by 3 months or 6 months and go ahead and start saving some money every month to contribute to that emergency fund. Just really have this money there for a rainy day, right? Like you never know when you're going to have an emergency and you're going to need to come up with cash. It's a good idea to just have cash on hand, like something that's liquid, something that you can easily access during the recession, because you just never know. Another way that you can create magic with your profits is to invest your money. So for example, maybe you can contribute to your Roth IRA or your traditional IRA. You can invest in the general stock market, index funds or ETFs, or real estate. Definitely do more research on what those wealth creating, wealth generating assets are and how you can invest your money into this pocket of investments. Tip number 8 is to consume content relating to personal finance. So in other words, we want to improve our financial literacy. So by consuming this content on a daily basis or just regularly, we're going to develop more terms, add them to our vocabulary. We're going to learn about different concepts. It's just going to help us get closer to our financial goals, because we're going to be absorbing that information and hopefully implementing it. So listen to podcasts, look up YouTube videos, follow people on social media, on your TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook. Change your algorithm. Learn more concepts that are going to help you prepare for this recession and treat it in a way that we're not going to be fearful. We're going to educate ourselves and learn how to be proactive so that we are not being reactive. Or if we are in a situation where we are being reactive, then we know the next steps to take rather than making decisions that we're going to regret down the line. There you have it. Those are 8 different tips that are really going to help you reach your 2023 financial goals in preparation for a recession. If you liked this video, go ahead and like the video. Also subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram. I really want to just level up this year. I want to eliminate all limiting beliefs, go after my goals fearlessly. So if that's something that you also are planning on doing this year, then go ahead and follow me and let's be part of each other's journey. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.